Ontario's prosperity is at risk. Our transportation issues eat away at our productivity, our economy, our lifestyle, and well-being. We asked what can be done to reverse this trend last night at an event in downtown Toronto. And joining us now to help us pore over what we learned, we have 5 guests. Vijay Gill is Director of Policy Research at the Conference Board of Canada. Brendan Hemley is Independent Transit Consultant with Hemley & Associates here in Toronto. Charlie Howard is Director of Integrated Planning for the Puget Sound Regional Council in Seattle, Washington. Martin Collier is the founder of Transport Futures, more on that in a second. And Gunnar Soderholm is the head of Environment and Health Administration for the city of Stockholm, Sweden. And we're happy to welcome all 5 of you from points very near and points very far around our table here for a discussion to follow up on last night's discussion at the University of Toronto. Transport Futures, you're having a big summit in town about all this.
Yeah. Well,
set the table. What's it all about?
Well, basically, the summit happened, the Mobility Pricing Summit happened yesterday, but it was actually the 10th conference in a series of events and conferences and learning about transportation issues, and especially as the way we pay for infrastructure, which started in November 2008. So it was our 5th anniversary yesterday as well.
And you're obviously getting people from all around the world to come to, in this case, Toronto, and find out what?
Well, basically, yeah, the speakers come from all over the world, and the people who come to the conference, the delegates come from mainly the GTA, but we had people from the US and Montreal yesterday as well. But the reason was because about 5 years ago or more, I was looking at how we pay for infrastructure in comparison to other countries. And I found that the one thing that we weren't talking about was how users who use the system, whether that's mainly the drivers, are actually paying for the road infrastructure. And so other countries like Sweden, like in the US, in the UK, Australia, they were actually using road tolls as a way to pay for the infrastructure. So the users who were getting the benefit from using that infrastructure were actually paying for the system more than the general taxpayer. And also the idea was to look at parking as well, and look at gas taxes as well as transit fares, because there's always an assumption that when we pay for transit, we pay a transit fare, but when we pay for the road, we're paying from it some other way, not when we actually use it, but through property taxes and through other mechanisms.
We should just clarify, last night we spent a lot of time at the University of Toronto talking about public transit and LRTs and subways and cycling and walking and a lot of the other means of transportation. Today we're going to focus a lot on roads. And Brendan, I want you to come in at this point and tell us, what do you think the primary issue facing Ontario's road networks is today?
Congestion. The roads are terribly congested, as everybody knows. And you can't build your way out of that, so there needs to be developed other alternatives to get people out of their cars and to develop other mechanisms so that the movement, that people aren't losing as much time and goods aren't losing as much time in the roads.
So it's not the state of the roads, it's not that they're in a state of disrepair.
No. Compared to, I travel the U.S., compared to a lot of states in the U.S., the state of the roads are still pretty good. Maybe not as good by Canadian standards or former Canadian standards, but that's pretty good. And it has to do more with just the volume of people, and if any incident happens, then the system seizes up and everybody gets stuck forever.
Vijay, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree that congestion. I would also say that the road condition is an issue as well, probably more likely at the local level rather than the provincial network. But I would still put congestion as the number one issue, and the efficiency of the use of the system. So we have actually a lot of capacity that's not actually used. And so I think of, in general, road pricing as a solution for efficiency purposes as much as, or more than anything else, than revenue raising.
We did talk road congestion last night at Innis College at U of T, so let's just play a little clip of that right now, and then we'll come back and chat. Roll tape, please. Do you think, as Rob Ford has often said, that there is among, you'll forgive me for putting it this way, you kind of people, a war on the car?
Well, I think that's how the debate has often been characterized, but I think most people in their daily lives make choices, right? Sometimes they'll take the car if they're taking their kid to the tuba lesson, right, or hockey. But sometimes, if it's a nice day and it makes sense, they'll take transit, sometimes they'll bike. And the trick is about increasing choices, not decreasing them.
And it's The difficulty you got right now is you don't have any choice in large parts of the urban area. So you've got to drive the car. The war on the car is congestion. That's the real war, the stalemate. This is like the First World War. It's trench warfare, and increasingly going to be that, with no movement and endless casualties. And that's what we have to try and get over.
That was a pretty dramatic metaphor last night about the war on the car. But Charlie, I wonder if it's the same thing in northwestern United States, where you feel you're, in some respects, constantly at war over the car.
I wouldn't put it as at war. I think we've certainly got our fair share of congestion, and we are starting to build out a transit system that we've had planned for years, and that's going to provide a lot of alternatives. But I think we sort of buried the war theme a few years ago, hopefully, and that it's not one or the other, but it's really smart investments in both modes.
You're looking for people to get along.
Looking for people to get along.
As opposed to go to war with each other.
That's correct.
Okay.
A lot more productive.
Yes. Gunnar, how about in Sweden? Is there a war on the car in Sweden?
No, I wouldn't say that. And Stockholm, no, Stockholm is a smaller city than Toronto. 900,000 in the city of Stockholm and 2 million in the region of Stockholm. But more and more people, we have a quite well-developed public transit system with the metro lines, commuter trains, bus lines. So 80% who commute from the inner city to coming in or going out from the inner city are using the public transit. And the bikers we have a much more well-extended biking lane system in Stockholm. And so the bikers are increasing rapidly now.
Why and how has all that happened?
I think that we, from the start, had very foreseen politicians in the 1940s who planned for metro stations that no one were living. They had a vision about the growing city, a growing Stockholm. And people are used to use the public transit. It's fast and it's rather cheap compared to many other cities.
Martin, we have a lot of people who use public transit, certainly in Ontario's capital city. A lot of people. I mean, hundreds of millions of people, hundreds of millions of trips a year. Not everybody's thrilled at how tough it is to get on a train, though, during rush hours, for example. Have we figured out yet our war on the car here versus trying to get people out of the car and into public transit?
Well, I think, like one of the others said, it's all about giving people choices. And there's transit there. That we have some bike lanes. We have some good pedestrian infrastructure for the shorter trips. And I think the thing is that if you're looking at pricing the system more properly, people will make different choices depending on how much it costs them. And right now, the operating costs of a vehicle are much less than you don't feel any pain when you're actually getting on the road because you've already paid for the gas, you've paid for the insurance, all those kinds of things. So the idea...
That's what people put that in. See, I'm convinced that when people hear what you just said, they say, what are you talking about? It costs a ton to fill up, it costs a ton to insure the car, we're going to get into a ding, an accident somewhere along the way, it's going to cost a lot to fix the car, upkeep on the car. It's hardly like it's pain-free to go driving a car these days.
That's all sort of the private costs, but then there's the public costs as well that we have to look at, and that's the infrastructure that we want. And we want to design streets differently to accommodate all the different modes that people can get to the place they want to get to in the most convenient way. And that's what we've been looking at for the last 5 years, and we've had 90 speakers come to Toronto to talk about, how do we price the system properly so people make the right choices of getting around and reduce that congestion. And I think for me, when it comes to pricing, I'd much rather pay to come from where I live now in Guelph into Toronto and always know that it's going to take me an hour, which is what it should take me, no matter which time I come, because it's priced properly.
Brendan, this notion of pricing the trip not on a train, but rather in your car, is that something we need to think about more?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I agree with Marty that when people get on transit, they pay every single time. And with gasoline, especially with more efficient cars, they're filling up much less frequently. Insurance, mortgage, the loans are all sort of paid semi-annually or monthly, but on transit you pay every single time. From an economic point of view, it's very important for people to really have to confront the costs of what they are consuming, and they should be paying for what they consume. And the way the system is right now, it's distorted. And if there was more pricing of this sort that Marty was talking about, then you would have people internalizing those choices, and so then they would choose the mode that was most appropriate and adjust their behavior. So if they didn't have to travel in the peak, they could travel a little bit off the peak, so it wasn't so increasing the congestion at the peak hours and so forth and so on.
So Gunnar, do you in Stockholm, let's say, do you have tolling everywhere so that if you want to drive your car into the city, you got to pay for it regardless?
No, it's not tolling everywhere. It's the inner city, which is 47 square kilometers in the central parts of Stockholm. You could say the Stockholm area 100 years ago, more of the historical area. And we charge the motorist between $1.50 and $3 between 6:30 in the morning and 6:30 in the afternoon. And that was introduced in January 2006. It was a trial, and the trial ended in July, and then we had a referendum in September, and people voted for a continuation, despite that when we planned for it and before the introduction, people were furious. 80% were against it, and it was the topic of politics in Stockholm at that time.
What turned it around?
The effects by itself. It turned down the traffic in and out from the inner city by the first month, 25% in average. During the trial, it took 22%. And people liked what they saw. I thought it was better environment, less noise, much better accessibility, less congestion. This saved in traveling times, both in the bus lanes and in the and those who stayed in car driving saved between 15 and 30 minutes in a single trip.
So when you had the referendum, do you remember what it passed by?
53% yes and 47% no.
Pretty close.
Pretty close at that time, but it was a very complicated political situation who started the project. Today we know that 70% in the opinion polls are in favor of it. This is all political parties is now in favor of the system. It's developed now that they will raise the tax in peak hours. They will put a new gantry on the bypass that was impossible when we started, and all the new money will contribute to financing a new metro lines and new metro stations.
That's the key, though, right? People have to get the sense that the money they're paying is actually going to improve
definitely.
transit.
That is a very important key.
Okay. Let's, Vijay, I want you to follow up on this, but hold off 1 second because we've got some more highlights from last night's gathering at Innis Town Hall that we want to play on this topic, and then I'll come back to you with a question. Roll tape, please.
There's certainly a great potential in the funding tools that are going to start to influence behavior. So I'll give you an example. Gas tax. That if you have the option every day to think about, hey, if I use my car, I'm going to have to pay a little bit more. If I use transit, it's going to be slightly different. Versus property tax, it doesn't actually influence how people move. Right? So if we start to make the priorities and start thinking about how are we going to influence the conversation and the quality of life of everybody on a daily basis, then we can really start making changes. And we can't just abstract it to the point that nobody relates to their daily lives.
So Vijay, the idea is to bring in policies that will actually change people's behavior. Is the kind of thing they've done in Stockholm, can you imagine that flying in the larger cities in Canada?
Obviously the appetite isn't quite there yet, and it depends on the city that you're talking about as well, whether or not it's set up to be able to handle a cordon type of charge like in Stockholm, and same thing that they did in London. In Canada, probably the best city that's set up to be able to handle that is Montreal, because it's easy to, you only have several points where you could actually get onto the island. It's a little bit more difficult to do, I think, in Toronto, because we're not really isolated in that way. Although
you're talking logistics, though. I'm talking about culture.
Okay, right. So
are people ready for the notion that if they want to bring their cars into the city, they're going to have to pay something to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a political pollster, so I don't really have any idea. I think the appetite has grown, but I don't think we're quite there yet, I would expect.
Charlie, how about in Seattle?
The Stockholm type system that's got a cordon to get into the center city is a different application, I think. We're going to do an incremental approach. We're looking at using tolls to fund individual roadway projects. And recently we've put time of day pricing on the 520 floating bridge. And that is our first attempt at trying to give a signal to people that if you travel at the peak period, it's going to cost more than not. That's been pretty successful. We've had some problems in that when you just toll one piece of the system, you got problems with diversion. So you got traffic going other ways, and that causes its own problems. But to date, the project's been pretty successful. It's reduced traffic on 520. It's made it an easier trip for the people that use 520. It's had those external effects, though, and really kind of gotten some people concerned about the traffic that's not taking that road anymore.
How tough a decision was it for the City Council to get that through?
So it was, it took a number of years. It took a lot of talking to the public, and we had, during the summer of 2008, we had a very extensive listening process where we didn't actually do a lot of talking. We did a lot of explaining, answering people's questions, and listening to what people were concerned about. That helped shape the proposal, and so that we had a proposal that really reflected what people were telling us. For example, they didn't want it to vary by minute. They wanted to know how much the toll was going to be when they left their house. And so the toll ended up being fixed by time of day.
And when did you finally bring it in?
2011 was when it started, when the toll started.
So you've had a couple of years to see how it's worked. And is there more public acceptance of the idea today, 2 years later?
There is acceptance of it as a way to pay for the project because the bridge needed to be replaced. So it was a damaged bridge. It needed to be replaced. There was wide acceptance of that. Time of day variable pricing was something that people weren't too concerned about, but I think they understand it now. They've seen it in operation, and so they recognize that it really does improve traffic flow on the road. The problems with the diversion, though, I think are something that we're still going to have to explore.
I think I was just going to mention is the technology we choose is important, but I think at least in Ontario, we know the 407 ETR highway. A lot of people have used the 407.
That's the only voluntary toll highway in Ontario.
It is, and it's only one of two highways in Canada that is actually tolled. There's one in Nova Scotia as well. But there's also something called cell phone technology. Most people in Canada now have actually cell phones, and in the old, 40 years ago, or even 20 years ago, everybody just was connected to a landline, and we thought that was how you were going to make your phone calls.
So how would cell phone technology
change? So cell phone
this?
technology, GPS technology with a transponder in the car would actually track the vehicles so that every road, and this is what they were actually trying to move towards in Holland a few years ago, was that every road, whether it was a highway, an arterial road, a dirt road, every road in between would actually be priced at different levels depending on the time of day, the conditions on the road,
You got any
where it was
privacy concerns
located.
about that?
No, because, well, that's another issue we could talk about
It's a
probably
pretty
for
big
an
issue,
hour.
though.
It is.
No,
definitely.
that's a pretty big issue.
It's a big issue, but they've set up, and I think Oregon also came up with a system where that data could be totally confidential.
Gunnar?
Well, in Stockholm, the privacy issue was huge before the introduction, but after the introduction and today it's not an issue.
Why is it not? Because clearly if you're using your cell phone, if you pay the government at the end of the day, the government knows where you've been and when.
Not only our government, obviously also the American government. So, well, I think Swedes are early technology adopters. They understand that you could be tracked on your cell phone, and if you're entering the inner city in a special time, that knowledge to anyone is not useful. And we designed a system that just take a photo of their license plate. You can't see the car, which actually was a problem from the start because people said, it's not my car. And sorry, we can't see it because we cut off everything but the license number. But it was a discussion about this.
Privacy is a concern, but it's worth noting, though, just picking up on what you just said, that anyone uses like a traffic app on their phone or the GPS with real-time traffic voluntarily gives their information to the provider of that solution.
Their choice, though.
Their choice, yeah.
Yes, but a great majority chose to do. TomTom, for example, has this system, and most of their the customers give back the information about how they're driving, and they have a congestion index globally, I think.
But the point is, if they see a return, they voluntarily give their information if they get something in return.
Yeah.
Right.
For it.
Brendan.
But I could bring it back because Charlie yesterday talked not only about the toll bridge, but also hot lanes that vary by the use of the lane.
Hot lanes being?
Well, I'll let him explain.
Okay.
Yeah, they high occupancy toll lane, so basically high occupancy vehicle lane that has extra room, and so we allow people to buy into that lane. So they pay a price, and they control the price by minute, so that it keeps the right number of people in there to keep it free flowing. The whole point is that it provides a congestion-free choice for people.
So these are like the carpool lanes, but you could even be a single driver if you choose to spend more.
You can be a single person single driver if you want to spend more. Right.
It's coming to Ontario. I don't know when, but they say it's coming to
this
Ontario.
is what, when you were asking me about the political appetite, I was thinking more of a court in charge, but more broadly, if you include that, I think the appetite is definitely there because we already introduced the HOV lanes.
Right.
The problem is that in the States, it costs a lot of money to build that kind of infrastructure. And my way of thinking about it is that we actually have to toll all the roads. We know how the 407 works. The hot lane is a whole new way of teaching people how to use infrastructure. We already know how the 407 works. Why not just toll the existing highways, 401 highways right across all the lanes, because we're already paying the whole thing in 407.
One more question for you, Brendan, before we go to a couple of graphs here that we want to show, and that is, how much time does it typically take to bring in what would be, by the standards, I guess, of the culture of this province, revolutionary new ways of getting people to make different decisions? How long do you think it takes to get buy-in on those kinds of things?
It depends. It takes a long time to get buy-in, and even when there is buy-in, then it takes a long time in the public sector to deploy technology, to get the funding, get it deployed, and so forth. And there's always this dilemma in the public sector. I mean, one expects technology to happen instantaneously because it's obsolete so quickly, but it takes so long to make anything happen, and you have to have an extensive engagement of the public and the politicians. And in the U.S., there's a better format for doing that through what they call metropolitan planning organizations, which look at multimodal transportation planning and have a forum that's there to do that kind of thinking, engagement, and planning.
We're not talking healthcare in the States right now, We are talking transportation.
And it's one of the things that actually does work.
But it doesn't have to take so long time. In Stockholm is the opposite example, where after the election 2002, the congestion charge project came as a surprise due to political agreements and compromises in the national parliament. And so we made, in 4 years, we made the design of the scheme, the procurement, and IBM got the job, and then we made a trial, and then we had a referendum for less than 4 years. So
I think that's the key.
You don't have to spend so much time on planning, obviously, because we came out with a scheme that worked very well. It has been up and running 99.997% of the time, and very few mischarges, and people trusted technology, and people changed their mind, and it's here to stay in a basic technology.
I think that's the technology. We have to show people here. That's why I bring up the 407, because people know how that works. And as long as we show people how it works through a pilot project, I think there's some municipalities that would be willing just to do it within their municipality, not right across the whole GTHA right away, but just show it. And then other municipalities who are always looking at what the other municipalities are doing will say, hey, that really worked there. Let me try it over here. And then just show people how it works. And I mean, 15, 20 years ago, I never knew what Google was. I didn't even know what a search engine was, and now we all know what search engines are. I think we're quite adaptable, and I think we're saying that people will take way longer than I really think.
So the buy-in, you think, would be faster than
once we show it.
People fear.
Yeah, I mean, there's the explaining. We have to communicate it, doing all that stuff, but we'd have to do that anyway.
Graphs. Let's show some graphs here. Those of you who are from town will know the Martin Prosperity Institute, one of the better-known think tanks in town. They did some reporting on Ontario's transportation funding gap from this past August. Let's bring these charts up now if we can, and we'll go through these together. Here is transportation spending by some of the larger provinces in Canada, going back a decade. This is from the years 2005 to 2009. And we see where Canada is, right at the top, that red line there, kind of going in the right direction if you care about these things. But then look at the line below that, the blue line, which is the province of Ontario, which nudges up and then down and then up again, and then is clearly headed in a down direction. And if you look at those other provinces below Ontario, they are also at least trending higher. Go to the next graph, which is transportation spending for major provinces per capita, again, 2005 to 2009. And we look at what the province of Alberta is doing, which is a line headed for the heavens. Canada minus Ontario, that red line in the middle, again, heading up, but go down to the bottom line again, and there's the province of Ontario, which again is heading down. So Brendan, talk to us about how much of our lag in transportation infrastructure is due to the fact that governments apparently, doesn't matter what stripe, aren't spending on it.
It's a problem in the sort of Canadian system that there's a very ad hoc approach to funding.
What does that mean?
It means that programs come in and the government comes in and will spend money for 2-3 years on a strategic investment, but after that it disappears and another one will come or it disappears depending on parliamentary priorities. There's no real programmatic approach to funding where there's a constant partnership between the different levels of government. And so one ends up with these kinds of trends. Alberta is spending a lot of money now because they have a lot of money from the oil revenues. So they've been trending up, but if you look even further back over time, it's a much more uneven picture.
Anybody else got any other theories about why that is, Vijay?
Well, first I have a bit of an issue with those numbers.
Go ahead.
I know that province of Ontario spent over $2 billion in 2010 on transit alone and over $4 billion in road and bridge network. So on a per capita basis, that roughly works out to about $600. So I'm not sure why those numbers are so low. I don't know what they are for the other provinces. The other thing I don't really like about those type of metrics is that if you just say, here's our spending, spend more money, that is not really a solution, especially for the policymakers. If you look at their overall budget, you could tell them to spend more money, but then you're going to have to tell them how they're going to finance that. Where are you going to make the cuts? That will be a lot more helpful because that's the decision that they have to make.
On the other hand, would you agree that digging a hole in one decade and then filling it in the next decade doesn't make a lot of sense?
Well, so addressing, yes, the point about being more systematic in terms of how we fund infrastructure or any type of programs, that is definitely a point I agree with, yes.
I think that's also sort of old style where, I guess, backing up, first of all, our health budget's going through the roof. Like, I think it's 40 to 45% of the total provincial budget.
Yeah, but they've it's only going up to 2.1% a year now.
But transportation has been flatlined for years and years and years. So, but it's also very old style where politicians are making the choices of where they're going to take a certain amount of money coming into general revenues and how are they going to allocate that revenue. Whereas, then that's why I'm a big proponent of road pricing, is that the users pay for the system, and so you have a new revenue source basically, which has never been there really in Ontario. And so you can actually have the money to maintain the infrastructure that is actually being used and redesign it so the users are getting the benefit back instead of waiting for the government to make their choices.
If we looked at this graph in Washington State, we saw it in Ontario, it goes like this and this and this and this, what would it look like where you are?
I think it might be a little bit more stable, but that's one of the things that we're trying to get our arms around. To manage a transportation system, you need a long-term, stable funding source. Because you've got to be able to not only invest in preserving the system, and those wild swings don't help you do that. You have to put an equal keep pavements going. You need an equal amount of money every year so that it can be predictable and you can actually improve the pavements when they need to be improved. Otherwise, it gets a lot more expensive. Bridges, the same way. You don't want to keep going up and down in bridge investment, and then you have a failed bridge, and all of a sudden you're investing money, and then you stop. That's not a real wise approach. To keep the transit systems operating, you need consistent predictability. So what we're trying to do is figure out how we can get a better, predictable transportation system. Our federal program used to be pretty predictable. It's not quite anymore. They've sort of oversubscribed the federal trust funds. Congress is going from a 3-month to 3-month extensions. It's really hard to do long-range transportation planning and investment
On
when
3 months.
you've got 3 months worth of certainty.
You've told them that, I presume.
Yeah.
And what do they say?
They've got political disagreements about how to fund the system, which I think is the same situation I heard yesterday here.
Indeed. What about in Sweden? The graph here looks like this. What does it look like where you are?
The system is totally different. It's a combination of local, regional, and national money, and kind of a tradition that is a little bit different from what you have. If we look at Stockholm the last 50 years, we have a lack of investments in infrastructure, especially in public transit, but also in new roads. The awareness about that has rather recently, the last 5-10 years happened. And now we have a huge investment program for the region of Stockholm. It's 100 billion Swedish crowns, about about 15 billion Canadian dollars. Not in a year, of course, but in several times. And what happens is that the congestion tax, the net revenue from the congestion tax, play a very important role to increase the mechanism to have a local contribution to the finance that we new infrastructure, and the combination of new roads and public transit from the congestion tax money is an ideal combination.
There is, you help me with this, Vijay, because I think there is a sense here in Canada that through our income taxes, through our sales taxes, through our gas taxes, drivers are already contributing to the construction of and upkeep of the roads they drive on. Is that not the case?
Well, I mean, we looked at it pretty recently for Ontario, and we looked at it for the GTHA. And in the GTHA, we looked at those types of revenues relative to expenditures or cost of the road network, and we did find that those revenues were higher than the cost of the road network. And this gets into a point I wanted to actually make about, there's two aspects about pricing, and we've kind of been mixing them up. One is the efficiency of the use of the system, and the other is to raise revenues. We've mostly been talking about, in general, in the province and in the region, about ways to make money, to raise more money. And we haven't talked too much about, and Marty's been talking a lot about it, about how to use pricing to get more efficient use of the system. So you could still implement, there's a kind of a halfway type of mentality where you could implement tolls or congestion fees, but decrease taxes elsewhere that are not very efficient at getting people to change their behavior.
People never buy that, you know. I mean, you remember this.
If revenue neutrality, you mean?
Well, yeah, but we went through this 25 years ago with the GST, where we eliminated a manufacturer's sales tax, but broadened the base of the goods and services tax.
Yeah.
And everybody said, "Who are you kidding? It's a tax grab. It doesn't come out revenue neutral."
Well, I think it's interesting the very different experiences that we had in Ontario and BC. Both Ontario, when we implemented the HST, part of the buy-in was to lower the lowest income tax bracket. And
Yep.
I think that sort of worked.
It did, well.
So it works sometimes.
It also lowered the cost of doing business.
Speak, if you would, though, Martin, about that original setup that I had, which is that people who drive today think that they're already paying plenty for the upkeep and construction of our roads and highways through their income taxes, sales taxes, gas taxes. Are they?
Well, according to Vijay's study, at least on infrastructure they are, but there's all these externalized costs. There's healthcare costs, somewhere between $9 and $17 billion a year. Those are numbers that I've seen thrown out there just for crashes on the road. Then that money has to be taken care of by the healthcare system.
Right.
So you have these environmental costs as well. There's all these environmental costs. Do we worry about smog and asthma? Again, another health issue.
You didn't figure those into your calculations, I bet.
We did actually look at those in addition to, so we wanted to primarily look at revenue and infrastructure, because I think the presumption was that even for the infrastructure, they're not even covering it. So we found that they are covering it. We did use previous estimates to look at some of the other additional costs. Now, the biggest thing about accidents and safety costs is that the biggest cost of that, how economists come up with what the cost of that is the value of life multiplied by the number of lives lost, which is a crass way to look at it, but that's what they do. And that is not, so it's not actually the healthcare cost. And that is actually absorbed mostly by the users.
I was talking about emergency services, police services.
Yeah, but that 9 to
ambulances, all
17
that.
billion number that you're talking about is a lot of it is driven by that value of life multiplied by lives lost. The emissions, I think, are the purest externalities that we have, and that's true. GHG and even local emissions, they come with a cost, and I think we should factor them in somehow. If you look at what they are relative to infrastructure costs, they're lower, but of course the estimates are a lot less certain. And the interesting thing about the gas tax, so we've had a lot of discussion about whether or not we should use gas taxes to fund this and that.
Yeah.
They work well for internalizing those emissions externalities. They don't work well for the pricing of the infrastructure. And so if we increase our gas taxes to try to change people's behavior on when they use the system, it won't work very well because you pay at whatever time you're driving, right?
I also wonder, I mean, there's certainly sympathy for people out there who make a living driving a truck. And while you may want to change behavior of people who frivolously drive their car downtown when they don't need to and they could take a subway, the guy who's on a rig has no choice. I mean, that's how he makes his living. You want to put up gas taxes on him too?
I wouldn't say gas taxes. I would say, again, road tolls. Road pricing is the way, because
Well,
they could maybe make...
Works out to the same thing for him though, doesn't it?
Not necessarily, because if behavior is modified and the congestion is reduced, and we've seen in Stockholm and elsewhere, you can get 20% to 30% congestion reduction overall through the system. An electrician or a plumber who has to make many service trips during the day might be able to get to 5 or 10 customers instead of just 1 or 2 because they're stuck in traffic. And I know in Stockholm they've had examples where some of the trucking firms say, yes, bring that on, because we can make way more money. There'll be a little cost of the toll, but in the grand scheme of things, we're making way more money because we can service way more people or deliver goods to the market much quicker so that the shelves aren't bare.
Actually, the transport organization in Stockholm called for a meeting where and the purpose was to make a protest against the congestion tax, but they couldn't agree upon a protest. And then after the introduction, they saw that they paid the same tax as private drivers, $10 as a maximum fee, but they saved an hour. And which is about more than 10 times the money. Yeah. So they were quite happy about it.
Gotcha. Let's talk, in our remaining time left here, we've got about 10, 15 minutes left, let's talk about planning. How we plan to do all of the things and all of the great ideas that you people spend your days looking at. And I mean, I do recall back in the day that if the Toronto Transit Commission wanted to buy new subway cars, or they wanted to put up a new line, this mostly unelected body just decided to do it. And then they'd call the provincial government and they'd say, you pay half.
That's not quite how it worked.
Well,
there was a programmatic approach, a subsidy framework that was well established, and the province had targets for the operating cost, and there was an agreed upon split between users, local government, and the provincial government that was well established by the rules.
But tell me this.
And the same for the investment, for replacement of buses, that was well established, 75%. It wasn't TTC that went and said, I want this money. There was a fixed budget. They would figure their operating budget and their capital budget, and 75% would be paid for by the province, 25% by the municipality and TTC.
This is my point. They spent 25 cent dollars, right?
Yes, but that's universal. Transit does not pay for itself, and users in Ontario are among the highest paying. They pay the highest proportion of the cost of operating the transit system. They pay 70%, 71% of the cost of operating transit. In New York, it's 45%. In Los Angeles, users only pay 25% of the cost of operating the transit system.
And here?
It's 71.
71%.
So this is on the high end of continental Europe. In Europe, it's between 30 and 70%, outside of England, which is quite different because of Thatcher.
I try to make a different point, though. The point I inelegantly made the point that today you can't do it that way anymore. You've got regional transit authorities that are in effect. The federal government wants to have a say. The provincial government wants to have a say. City council. You've got 4 different bodies, and sometimes if you're, as in the case of the York University subway, if you're going beyond municipal boundaries on these things, you may have 2 municipalities that want to say on things. So you've got 5 different actors at the table.
I would take the federal government out. They're not at the table. They sometimes, if there's a political
Well, they write a
opportunity,
check every now and then, right?
Yeah, I would say they're not
Okay.
saying or doing
But
anything.
they
for
just wrote a
transit
$600
anyway.
million check for whatever.
Yeah, how long did that take?
$8 billion cost of the system.
Okay, I
Take
take
the
your
feds
point. Bottom line, are we in a new day where we've got to change the way we think about how to plan to put new subways, new LRTs, new whatever in? Are we in a new and much more complicated day?
Yes. We should have had this before. It was based on relying on individual municipalities, and so there's all these ad hoc arrangements between Toronto and Mississauga, GO and Mississauga, York and York and TTC. We've needed a system of systematic planning at a regional level. Metrolinx brought in was a step in that direction, but I really do like the model in the U.S. where these metropolitan planning organizations are multimodal in perspective.
Multimodal meaning?
Both cars, transit, alternative modes are all viewed together as part of the mix.
Do we have that here?
No. We have Metrolinx does transit, MTO does highways.
Ministry of Transportation of
Ministry of
Ontario.
Transportation of
And
Ontario.
then at the municipal level, like at Toronto, you have transportation services doing the road, you have TTC doing the transit, you have bikes doing stuff, you have parking authority taking care of parking, and they're all separate. They're not working together under the same roof.
How do you do it, Charlie?
We've got the structure. So we've got the ability for all of us, transit, roadways, bikes, walking, to talk to each other, and that's great. We've got the table. It's still complicated because you've still got separate silos for funding. You have to bring people together. But we do have a pretty good dialogue in our region, and being able to talk to each other and understand what the connections are between the investments that we're making. We haven't totally solved it, but I think we've got a pretty good handle on the.
But when you want to do something new in transit, have you got a table which has got the national government, the state government, your regional government, your city government?
We do.
You've got all those people at the table.
We do.
Does that work?
Like I said, it's still a complicated discussion. You've still got to put a lot of different pieces together. And the public. You need to convince the public that there's something that they're going to get out of it. Yesterday we used this term value proposition. The public needs to clearly understand a value proposition from what we're proposing to do. If they don't get it, they won't support it. I think that went to your earlier point.
Right. Vijay, is there a better way to do what we're trying to do here?
Well, I mean, I think if we talked a little bit about dedicating user revenues to certain things, and if we did that, I think we have a better opportunity to avoid a lot of these problems. So we have examples of where we've done this in transportation in Canada. So for example, we rarely ever think about, well, I shouldn't say rarely, but we don't think about as often our rail freight infrastructure and the problems about funding it and that kind of stuff. They're run privately, effectively. CN and CP, the largest railways in the country, they're among the most efficient in the world. We have a problem that's very different than in Europe. In Europe, the freight infrastructure is underutilized and needs to be subsidized. Our problem is that our railways are accused of sometimes making too much money. What a great problem to have, if we're making too much money. Same thing with our airports, which are not private, but they've been commercialized. Yeah. As you recall, 20 years ago, Pearson Airport wasn't the greatest place to fly through. Now our biggest criticisms of airports are they're too nice and too big, too much capacity. And the reason is because we've allocated those user revenues directly to a specific source that has the long-term operating and maintenance responsibility.
An airport authority.
An airport authority or a railway. Exactly. So they know they don't have a stable. No one tells them you're going to get $1 billion a year every year for however long it is. But they'll have to do their forecast of their passengers and figure out what the revenues are, and then plan for the future. And then the same organization that's building now will be responsible for maintaining that 10 or 20 years from now. So they can't just say, okay, we'll spend this money and then not worry about it, kick it down the line. So they have to integrate that long-term life cycle planning. And the reason why we don't think about those things that much anymore is because they kind of work.
It works.
The railways used to lose a lot of money. The airports used to lose a lot of money. Required a bunch of subsidies. Now they actually contribute money to the government.
Got it. When you want to build in Stockholm, Sweden, a new light rail transit line, who's at that table having the negotiations to figure it all out?
There is a combination of a negotiator from the national government who have a negotiation with the regional authorities and the municipalities, especially the city of Stockholm. We're 10 times bigger than the second biggest in the region of Stockholm. So we have, but there is a negotiation. Now it works quite well, but of course it's nothing is easy. It's like Seattle, I would say. There is a table, there is discussion, there is coming result, but it's always conflicts. But it's less now than it has been.
Are these politicians around the table, or bureaucrats, or a mix, or what?
Oh yes.
All of the above?
Yes, yes. It's always start with the politicians. They make an agreement, and there are quite close discussions with everyone knows each other in these fields. So there is a basic agreement between the politicians, and then all the civil servants guys and bureaucrats are coming in.
I think one way of maybe getting things set up right is actually taking all these transportation services and move it outside of government, just like we've done with electric utilities and water. On the municipal bill, those are always separate. You're not getting that on your property tax bill. They're all operated independently of the main property tax. So they run like businesses, those utilities. You have to pay, you're metered, your electricity, you're paying for the amount of water you actually use. I'm not paying for Brendan's water. I'm not paying for Vijay's water for the amount he uses. He might use 20 times as much as I do. So that's, if you can actually move that off government, off property tax, the transport part of the property tax bill, move that off, then we can move closer to this business model of running more efficiently as well. Everybody would be under the same roof, but also a metered system, which is road pricing and parking.
Brendan, now that we've established that Martin doesn't want to pay your water bills, I want to ask you something else, which is, you've looked at this for a long time, and I wonder if you've come to a conclusion about whether our regional planning authorities ought to be politician-free or bureaucrat-free or a mix of both. What gets us the best and most efficient way to the finish line?
You need, well, a number of things.
You just rolled your eyes there really bad.
Because we're right in the middle of an absolute ad hoc discussion process that's been going on for the last year of trying to figure out. Metrolinx was supposed to provide a forum, a discussion process, but it hasn't quite worked out as planned, and we've seen that single mayor changes a mayor, and all of a sudden everything's thrown up. And so there needs to be a programmatic approach to the subsidy framework. First of all, I still feel that very strongly for the operating transit is. Everybody focuses on the capital, but operations people, that's what really people are concerned about. So operations, ongoing replacement capital, and then have special forms for negotiating. But we need a process that has a technical basis that does the analysis of where we really need services, where we really need infrastructure to do the planning, do the technical analysis, environmental analysis, have that as a basis, and then have over it a forum that engages the politicians, but also the public directly, so that they understand the vision, they understand where we're trying to go, and the politicians have a forum so that they can work out these conflicts, which are naturally going to happen between municipalities and so forth, and have that framework as opposed to tackling each new line, Scarborough, now the relief line, and in an ad hoc way without really figuring that out.
Let me follow up on that with you, Martin, because it feels like, you tell me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like much of the transportation debate we've had in this province, particularly in the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area over the last few years, is focused on subways versus light rail transit, subway to Scarborough versus relief lines downtown versus Eglinton versus Finch versus, okay, we've had all of these, but it's mostly focused on rapid transit as opposed to roads and highways. Roads and highways, it feels like they get lost in this discussion. Why is that?
I don't know, we were talking about that earlier, is back in the 50s and 60s, the way out of congestion was to build highways. It was all about road infrastructure. Transit was being built maybe better than it is, well, in the last 15 or 20 years, but it's still the way people are getting around. You're talking about goods movement. The commuters are definitely, a lot of the traffic happens on the roads because there's not other choices. But certainly at Transport Futures, we've been trying to say, how do we maintain the existing infrastructure, use it more efficiently? How do we pay for it? So at Transport Futures, it's not lost in the mix. But I must admit, in the last 5 to 10 years, transit has just taken off. I just think because media is paying more attention to the transit problem, and transit as a solution to congestion, which on its own will never happen.
But Charlie, one of the things we frequently hear is building new highways doesn't actually alleviate congestion at all, because it just encourages more people to drive, and they will pack those highways, and you're no further ahead. Do you believe that?
On a wholesale basis, yes. I mean, in our plan, we gave up in the 70s a freeway-oriented transportation system. So we dropped a lot of the major freeways that were planned for the region. However, that doesn't mean we don't invest in our roadways, and it doesn't mean that we don't make strategic investments at particular locations where we can see a return. So we've got some highway improvements in our plan. We are building out a transit system that we have for years not built, and so we're starting to really invest in that and build that out. So in our region, you see a lot of focus on the transit system because it was what wasn't built. We
also the largest number of van pools in North America is in Seattle.
Yeah, we have a huge van pool fleet. That's very effective.
What's a van pool fleet?
Van pools are publicly owned vans that are put out to groups of workers who are self-drive. So the riders are the ones who take turns driving them. Those usually pretty much recover their operating cost.
And operated by the transit system.
Operated by the transit system, yeah. And they serve suburban office locations extremely well because they're not like on that fixed route.
We got about a minute left here. Vijay, let me ask you. We've got a highway that cuts through the middle of this city called I'm going to call it by its real name, the McDonald-Cartier Highway, also known as the 401. 16 lanes wide at some spots. Constantly, doesn't matter what time of day anymore, jam-packed. Are the days of trying to build those kinds of highways to alleviate traffic in this province over?
Well, I think we still have strategic investments. I mean, there is some extensions of that, of the 401 happening in the West right now. So I think it'll continue to be addressed on a case-by-case basis. But no, I don't think it's over that we'll build any highways or roads. I think it's going to continue to be a mix of transit and roads, but more importantly, we should be looking at getting more efficient use of those roads. Right.
And you've all given us a lot to think about how we do that tonight. So my thanks to all of you for coming from, as I suggested, very near, and a long way away to be with us this evening here on TVO. Thanks very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.